Lots to cover today. Oh my gosh. Irma Gersh. Here's what happens. Join chat room. Come here for a second. Let me chit chat with you when we get up at your business. As you know, this morning before the show, I had to watch a bunch of stuff that is the job of my job, which is watching awful people talk shit about normal people like you and myself, and also try to polish Trump's turds all day long. Now, the over the course of the afternoon, I do a similar thing and kind of picking up what happened maybe during or after. And you run across a couple of things. I'll give you an example. Like this shithead on Dr. Phil McCracken's show, Inside RFK Jr.'s Health Agenda 100 Days In. Okay, and during this, let me show you a quick snippet.
And of 84 years old, we spend $12,000 a year per patient, per capita. And we have a lifespan of 79. We used to have the same lifespan as they did in Europe, but the Europeans have now moved 6 years ahead of us, and we've stayed stagnant.
So we're spending 4 times as much.
Oh my God, it must be the medicine that's the problem. We're spending all this money, and we're not getting the same health outcomes. We're all, okay, get the point? All right. Real quick, may I, in this blather that he talks about, he cites the fact that we spend money on chronic disease. 95% of what we spend on illness in this country is chronic disease. That's because most people in this country are baby boomers and older, or people who have lifelong deficiencies that they were either born with or an accident that occurred when they were very young. And that's why we spend 95% of our money on that, because quite frankly, the rest of the country, which is what we found out during the ACA, doesn't have insurance and basically pours peroxide on shit and hopes for the best. And they go to quick care if it's a big deal. But most people, until they drop dead, are perfectly healthy. That's unless you're lucky enough to get old enough to have chronic disease. So the reason we spend the most on chronic disease is because you don't spend a lot of money on temporary fucking disease. You stop spending on it. The reason chronic illness will always be the majority of what you spend. Yes, because whoever that person is, if it's chronic, they have to take that pill all the time. They have to have that treatment constantly. It is chronic. Therefore, it is going to be the spot illness, the spot injury, for fuck's sake, is of course going to be a smaller amount. There's no epidemic of people accidentally sawing their fucking leg off and getting gangrene. As a matter of fact, we don't even have fucking a problem with massive issues with gangrene anymore. We used to. People used to just get gangrene or tuberculosis, or like rolling illness, for about a year and a half, and then that was it. It never got a chance to become chronic. You just fucking died. So, of course, all of your major spending, especially when it's Medicare and Medicaid, you as the government and as insurance, you're spending it largely on people who have long-running illnesses, because the people who don't get better and go back to whatever. Yes, and blood pressure medication, once it starts, you don't necessarily stop, but it keeps you alive versus the alternative. Oh my God, this drives me crazy. This is one of those, like, fuck around with statistics. Now, here's the thing, though. Here's the fucking thing. What they're doing, it must be something that Big Pharma is doing that's making everybody sick. All right. Chronic disease prevalence in the U.S. Sociodemographic and geographic variations by zip code tabulation area. How do you think this is going to work out? Do you think, ladies and gentlemen, that in the north and all over big cities like New York, where you got a store on every corner selling all kinds of sugary drinks like you could possibly want, you're never wanting for snacks and fancy desserts at their fancy restaurants and all that kind of stuff, or in Chicago or up in fucking Washington State or even California for that matter? Do you think that's where the chronic disease is? Do you think the chronic disease is rife with the Democrat voting areas of the world? Or Do you think that if this was a lung, the southern part of the lung is where all the smoking is happening. And the rest of it, look where the rest of it is. Look up in the north. Fucking up here in the top of Michigan near the UP, the Upper Peninsula, which is basically like fucking Alabama. Rando areas of here, which again, population for population, highest prevalence. The dark red is the highest prevalence. What happened up here? Idaho and Washington State. Where is it? Is it over by Seattle? Is it over where all these fucking coffee latte drinkers with their sugary frappuccinos? Is that where all this chronic illness is happening? No. It's happening in the eastern part of the state where all the fucking rednecks are. And I'm from Kentucky, and I'm here to tell you, look at fucking Kentucky right here. Look at that. Look at West Virginia. Look at fucking West Virginia. It's like that whole state is like a tumor. By the way, good luck bringing back coal so that you can revive all the illnesses that might be on the fade there. Highest prevalence throughout here. What about this? This is the choropleth map of the U.S. showing the geographic distribution of chronic disease prevalence. Does that look like a big fucking California hotspot with 99% confidence? That would be. Hey, look at this graph over here. Hot spot with 99%. Cold spot with 95%. That means, see these areas? This is where, by population, there's almost fucking none. That means there's less than the average. That means the weighted average for this shit all happens in this area. So, do you think that might be why all of a sudden, apropos of fucking nothing, the Republicans suddenly start giving a shit about food additives and obesity and all these things? Anybody think that maybe it's not because they give a shit about humanity as a whole, it's because their fucking voters are gonna die? By the way, the gray areas and the white areas are not significant. No offense, Nevada, but, there's fucking nobody there. Just saying. Do you think this might be why all of a sudden they give a shit? When they never did before. What do they give a shit about food additives and fucking, chronic disease and all that kind of stuff? They only started giving a shit when they looked at the arc of the living members of their own voter base and went, uh-oh, these motherfuckers are going to be dead in 12 years. Unless we as the government attack this issue. Right? Oh, in case you're just joining, welcome. RFK Jr. was saying that we spend 95% of our government money, our insurance money, on chronic disease, and we got to do something about it. And when he was a young boy, there wasn't any chronic disease. Yeah, because people just fucking died. We didn't have treatments for these diseases, so you didn't think of chronic disease. You just thought of a disease that kills you, unfortunately, earlier. But things become chronic when it stops killing you. Before we found a cure, and after it stops killing you, and you're in this medical gray area, that's when shit becomes chronic. That's where we are right now. Thanks to medical technology and the limits of physics. That's where we fucking are. And it's not just consumption, it's shit consumption, D.B. Golding. That's very clear. And again, he's like, we've got all these fucking, poisons and toxins that work in our environment. They didn't give a shit about that. Republicans didn't give a shit about that at all. Until, look at the chronic disease map. Did those look like Trump counties to you or what? Shit, if I'd have looked at this map last year, I could have told you Trump was probably going to win Michigan, for fuck's sake. just on, he eats just like we eat. So, okay. So these are the kind of, just so you know, chat room, these are the kind of rabbit holes I get into. And and all of the stuff written about chronic disease, even the nature of this. This is from February, this original research, volume 21, February 29th, 2024. Okay. The people who wrote on this have probably been bounced by Doge as DEI hires because they sound very only fractionally white in one particular situation, maybe not at all. So, but the primary thing is that they look at the geographic distribution and sociodemographic and economic characteristics of chronic disease, which is what Democrats have been talking about for a long time. Like food deserts and food insecurity and bad quality of food and junk food and all these, like, fucking, remember how bad Republicans went after Bloomberg for wanting to have like a sugary drink tax because he was looking down the fucking road at where his voters would be in about a decade? Right? Democrats have been talking about this for a long time. Poor people eat poor diets. And one of the things we can improve with that is better school lunches, shit like that. Right? Now all of a sudden, with the RFK, we're going to get RFK in there and he's going to help us all out and shit. A former heroin user who's been raw dogging hippie chicks who don't believe in infectious disease for the last 5 years. 20, but 5 on the road. And now, like, they start giving a shit. And they're like, you're fighting to make America health again. Well, why? Why in the fuck would Trump hit this garbage-eating, nut-wagging, orange pile of shit suddenly care about food? Is it because they're worried about these people? No. It's because they are recognizing that their voter base is doomed unless they, through regulation and forced behavior, make them eat less shit, because that's what this is. This is, don't mistake what RFK Jr. is for anything else. It's government regulations to save lives. Cool. Knock yourself out, asshole. I like, it drives me crazy that these people are like, regulations, the government doesn't know what it's doing. The first time he gets in there, what are you doing? She meant she was barefoot. That's not what that means, Sage. That's not what that means at all. So, this is why they suddenly give a shit. These charts. They're just looking at their voter base is dying. And Billy G's saying they don't give a shit. I don't think they give a shit on an emotional or moral or just a genuine humanitarian reason. They do it out of self-interest. And I got news for you. If it saves lives because these assholes are selfish, I'm for it. I don't care. If you have to trick Trump's dickhead followers into not eating shit by telling them a Democratic talking point for 2 decades is all of a sudden a conservative talking point, it's very common sense and conservative of them, then fine. If it saves their life, maybe they'll eat less shit and they'll live longer and they'll live long enough to wake up from their stupor. Maybe that. Is there no data on New Jersey? This one right here. Yeah, it's either they don't track it or it's not it's not significant. But I would guess, but in this blue streak right here, it's the gap. I would guess it's about half and half. But yeah, there's no data on it to speak of. Just like there's no data for like the western part of, the eastern part of California, big swaths, because there's no fucking people there. But New Jersey doesn't do it because they don't track it because of probably medical privacy laws, I would guess. And then, of course, Alaska, they have some down here, down in the bottom, right along here. Not too much of it because you don't move to Alaska if you've got bad knees, right? And this part up here, They just don't give a shit. If you're living up there, it's nobody cares. This is where all the serial killers dump bodies out of low-flying airplanes. So there's no chronic illness at all. Bruh. So just saying, like, if you're ever wondering why all of a sudden Republicans are talking like Democrats in terms of food additives and health safety in that regard, minus the vaccine shit, this is why. 100% why. And where'd you get this, Hal? Where'd you get this? I got this from the actual CDC report that he's fucking citing in this interview when they're saying 95% of, let's see, I'm up on, let's see, are we up on Facebook? Hold on. I don't think we're on, the only thing we're not on is Rumble, which is being a dick. Where'd we go? Oh, what happened? Okay. But yeah, I'm up on Facebook someplace. There's 135 people watching on just the Facebook page alone. Yeah, Tony Soprano buried New Jersey data with the fishes.
Why are you going to put all this? Why do you want to take the menu from Charlie's restaurant and pass it around?
Anyways, so I'm just letting you know. You got to live long to get chronic illness. That's exactly right, Pontius Pirate. That's the point. Is that we also have, like, they're like, we have lost our data with other European countries. And by the way, like, they're all even. There'll be a wash of it, but you think they have as much difference and variance in life expectancy in European countries as we do in these states. And I got news for you. Who thinks that the death rate from chronic disease and lifestyle-based illnesses are centered more in one area of the country versus another? Does anybody get the feeling that chronic disease, deaths from chronic disease and high expenditure illnesses that last a long time might be coming from one particular part of the country where the cost goes very high and is not in the other areas where the cost would be precipitously low? I'm like a chronic disease weatherman. All of this moisture is going to push down from the south and push off and hit Altoona. Right? Just, yeah. Anybody got a guess? Anybody got a guess where the high cost of healthcare around chronic disease might be, and the low cost of chronic disease might be all these fucking Democrat-run cities that have a much lower cost, according to the CDC's own chart, cold spot, with 95% confidence. Nice going, Chicago. Well done, Madison, Wisconsin. Way to go, center of fucking, is that Kansas? I don't know what the fuck it is. And then in California, the whole coast. Bunch of fucking granola-eating jogger sons of bitches. New York, look at the East Coast. Vermont and all its granola, right? Oh, Colorado, yeah, there we go. That big chunk right in here. Yeah, right here. Right? So Arizona, that's where everybody with the chronic disease, they all go to here, and then they get better and they move to here. So you see what I'm trying to say. Now, pop quiz. Pop quiz, ladies and gentlemen. Going by this map of chronic disease in the country, where would you think the lower test scores versus the higher test scores ratio is, and the states that weigh down the average for test scores in the country, so that the other areas, and I won't point to which, where the other areas do quite well in terms of testing and would be on par and ahead of most Northern European countries, right? But because we average it across the entire area, which area do you think brings down the grade point average of the entire fucking country? Do you think there's any overlap in this situation? Just saying. And you know, for all that fucking fluoride, man, it makes everybody dumb. I'm going to go with the calorie content and the quality of calories might have something to do with it. I was always a smartass when I grew up in Kentucky. And by the way, if you want to look where I grew up in Kentucky, that spot right there. There's Lexington, Frankfort, and Louisville. That's that area. That's the place where it's where the fucking horse farms are, right over here. That's where the capital is, and that's where where the racing happens. This is where all the money is in Kentucky, right there. Look at Nashville, for fuck's sake. Look at Nashville, you bunch of fucking hippies. That's exactly what that is. Bunch of musicians moving into Nashville and wanting to stay young so they eat better and treat themselves right. And then around them is this donut of alcoholism. But the point is, I grew up in Kentucky in this part, and I was always a smart ass, but I didn't become just plain smart until I moved up to this blue area. I'm just saying, the availability of food and the quality of it had a lot to do with it. It's just penicillin in a petri dish. It totally looks like it. It absolutely looks like a fucking culture to see if, like, gee, what part of America has the clap, right? So, whenever you hear somebody talking about how, well, we've got a contagious, or we got a chronic disease problem in this country. Yeah. And the South and MAGA town needs to get its shit together. Right, bunch of kale eating musicians. That's exactly right. Education. Why is American schools are so they're so far, like, why aren't we spending so much on students? Well, guess what? Another thing. Fuck me. Okay, we've looked at this before, but I want to show everybody just to tie this to using the same map of chronic disease. Where do you think we've already established that the higher test scores also look like this, versus low test scores being red, high test scores being blue. This is how the map of quality students looks as well, almost exactly. And on top of that, does anybody want to guess where how much they spend per student goes? So, which area? Do you think this is the area? The red is we spend a lot on students, and the blue is where we spend very little? Or do you think the areas where we spend more on students, have healthier outcomes, and better test scores are all the same areas, and all the places where we have shitty chronic disease, low test scores, unemployment, high crime, all that stuff happens where the food is the shittiest and is the generalized, where a culture of deep fried Snickers bars is considered old-fashioned country. Hal doesn't believe in vegetables. I've never seen one. You're right. I think of vegetables like Bigfoot. Diabetes. That's right. I'm Wilford Brimley, and this whole stain here is diabetes. Right. I'm telling you. Is it interesting to anyone that it all lines up? Yes. Obesity charts in the United States, chronic disease, lack of funding for education, high crime rates per capita, and that's always crucial. Understand, you can't just say by volume, because obviously a big city will always have more crime than a small area, but 1-to-1, person to person, per capita, these areas will have more crime, especially fucking, Mississippi, Louisiana, like top of Louisiana over here, Alabama, Mississippi. That's the worst of it, quite frankly. And of course,
And when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
All right. So, you think Hal is carnivore? You are correct. Although I'm imperfect carnivore, I'm not. I don't believe in eating religiously. I mean, I don't have anything against kosher, for example. But I believe you have to be flexible because if your diet stresses you out more than it benefits you, maintaining it will make you sicker than no matter how good it would have been great. KJ Doglove, no, it isn't. I love you, but no, it isn't. So, anyways, this is, depends on the person, I say. There we go. All right. Chat room, just saying. The overlap shouldn't surprise anyone, okay? Yeah. The overlap between all those characteristics, understand, is crucial to understanding this whole, ketovore is probably closest. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Because I just had a fist, right before I came on the show, I just had a fistful of macadamia nuts just so my stomach doesn't growl during the show, because I only eat once a day and I don't care if my stomach growls, so it can be annoying on the show sometimes because I can't hear it because my earbuds are in, but I imagine it to be fairly loud at times. So, all right.